Ciao, everyone. Welcome to Off the Map. I'm Ginger Pelirroja, and if you're used to hearing Keith's voice right about now, don't worry, he's not far. He handed me the keys this week because today we're going somewhere that hits close to my heart. We're heading to southern Italy. Not the Amalfi Coast, not Rome, not the places your feed is already full of. We're going to Matera, a city carved into the bones of the earth itself. With me is Lucia Ferrante, who was born in Matera, left as a young woman, and came back to dedicate her life to sharing its stories. Lucia, before we get into any history, just take me there. What does Matera feel like when you walk through it in the morning?
Ginger, thank you for having me. The morning in Matera, it is not like any other city. You step outside, and the stone is already warm from yesterday's sun. It holds heat the way a grandmother holds a secret, slowly, carefully. The light comes over the ravine and hits the sassi, the cave neighborhoods, and everything turns this pale gold, almost like honey on limestone. You hear church bells, maybe a dog barking somewhere below you, and you realize the roof you're standing on is someone else's ceiling. And below that another home, and below that another. 9,000 years of people stacked into the same cliff, and somehow it still breathes.
9,000 years. I grew up in Romania, and we have old places, churches from the 14th century, villages that feel frozen in time. But 9,000 years? That's not history. That's something else entirely. When did your family first come to Matera?
My grandmother was born in the Sasso Caveoso, that is the older of the two Sassi districts. Her family had been there for generations before her. She lived in what people call a casa grotta, a cave house, one room. The family on one side, the donkey on the other. A cistern cut into the floor to catch rainwater. No electricity, no plumbing. She cooked over a fire pit carved into the rock, and she always said it was the happiest time of her life because everyone was together. The whole neighborhood was like one family. You could hear your neighbor singing while she made bread. You could smell what everyone was cooking. The children played on the terraces, which were really just the rooftops of the houses below. There was no privacy, but there was no loneliness either.
That's the thing people don't understand about these old places, isn't it? We look at the conditions and think, how terrible. But the people who lived it remember community. They remember belonging. I have seen the same thing in Romanian villages. Everyone's struggling, sure, but no one's struggling alone.
Exactly. And that is the tragedy of what happened next. In 1952, the Italian government decided the sassi were, how do I translate it, la vergogna d'Italia, the shame of Italy. The conditions were real: malaria, overcrowding, children dying. So they passed a law and forced everyone out. 15,000 people relocated to new concrete apartment buildings. My grandmother was one of them. She told me she cried for a week. Not because the new apartment was bad, it had running water, it had a toilet, but because she lost her neighbors, she lost the sound of the stone. She said the new walls were too thin. She could hear strangers, but not family.
That breaks my heart. It's the same story everywhere, isn't it? Progress comes and it takes something with it. In Romania, under Ceausescu, they bulldozed entire villages to build apartment blocks. The buildings were better on paper, but the soul was gone. Did anyone resist?
Some people refused to leave. They stayed quietly, illegally, in the upper caves where the authorities did not bother to check. For 30 years, the sassi were almost empty, abandoned, overgrown. The government wanted everyone to forget they existed. But a group of young people, lawyers, students, artists, they formed a cultural club in the late 1950s and started exploring the abandoned caves. They found frescoed churches no one had seen in decades. They found cistern systems that were engineering marvels. They realized, this is not shame. This is 9,000 years of human genius. And they began fighting to save it.
And they won.
They won. In 1993, UNESCO declared the Sassi di Matera a World Heritage Site, from the shame of Italy to the pride of the world. My grandmother lived long enough to see that. She cried again, but different tears. Chapter 2.
Okay, I have to ask about the food, because I've been to southern Italy, and the food there isn't just food, it's an argument. Every grandmother thinks hers is the best, and honestly, they're all right. What does Matera taste like?
In Matera, everything begins with bread. The pane di Matera is famous. It has its own IGP certification, like a fine wine. It is made with durum wheat semolina from the Murgia Plateau, shaped into large loaves and baked in wood-fired ovens. But what makes it special is the tradition. In the old sassi, each family had a stamp, a wooden seal with their family symbol. You would mark your dough and carry it to the communal oven, the forno pubblico, where every family's bread baked together. The baker knew which loaf belonged to which family by the stamp. It was practical, yes, but it was also a daily ritual of trust. You gave your bread to someone else's fire.
I love that. That's not just baking. That's a social contract. Your neighbor's hands are feeding your family. We had something similar in Romania, the communal bread ovens in Transylvanian villages. You'd bring your dough wrapped in cloth, and the whole street would gossip while the bread rose. Some of my earliest memories smell like wood smoke and warm flour.
Yes, it is the same spirit. And the bread lasts. A good loaf of pane di Matera stays fresh for a week or more. That was necessary when you were poor. Nothing was wasted. Stale bread becomes crappiata, our traditional bean and grain stew, or it becomes cialeda, bread soaked in hot water with tomatoes, olive oil, and a raw egg stirred in. Food of the poor, but I promise you, it is food of the soul.
You're making me hungry and emotional at the same time. What about the churches? Because I've heard there are these incredible frescoed cave churches hidden throughout the ravine, and most tourists walk right past them.
The cheese rupestri, the Rupestrian churches, they are Matera's greatest hidden treasure. There are over 150 of them carved into the rock walls of the Gravina ravine and throughout the Sassi. Some date back to the 8th century, when Byzantine monks settled here. They carved entire sanctuaries out of limestone, arches, columns, altars, all from the living rock. And then they painted frescoes of saints, of the Madonna, of Christ, painted directly onto the cave walls in pigments made from local minerals. Some are fading now. Some have been damaged by moisture, by time, by tourists touching them. The crypt of the original sin, we call it the Sistine Chapel of Rupestrian art, has frescoes from the 9th century that will take your breath away.
I've seen old churches in Romania, painted monasteries in Bukovina, where every wall is covered in frescoes, exposed to the elements for 500 years. There's something about seeing sacred art in a raw space, no marble floors, no gift shop, just paint on stone and silence. It hits different.
That is the perfect way to say it. These churches were not built to impress. They were built to pray. The monks who carved them were seeking God in the most literal way, digging into the earth to find stillness. When you stand inside one, especially alone, and the only light is what comes through a small opening in the rock, you feel it. Time does not exist there. You are standing where someone stood 1,200 years ago, looking at the same face of the Madonna, and for a moment, you are them.
That's the kind of travel moment that changes you, not the Instagram shot, not the landmark selfie, the moment where you feel connected to something so much older and bigger than yourself. That's why we do this show. Chapter 3. So here's where I want to get real, because Matera's story is incredible, from shame to UNESCO glory, from abandoned caves to boutique hotels, but that comes with a cost, doesn't it? What happens when the world discovers a place that survived by being forgotten?
This is the question I struggle with every day. When I was a girl, Matera was empty. You could walk the sassi alone, hear only your own footsteps. Now, especially after Matera was named European Capital of Culture in 2019, the tourists come, hundreds of thousands every year. And I am grateful because tourism saved these stones. The caves that were crumbling are now hotels, restaurants, galleries. People live here again, but the people who live here now are not always the people who lived here before. The old families, my grandmother's neighbors, most of them never came back. They stayed in the new apartments. The sassi are beautiful again, but they are different. A cave that held a family of 8 and a donkey now holds a boutique with handmade ceramics and a price tag my grandmother could never imagine.
Gentrification inside a 9,000-year-old cave. That's wild when you say it out loud. But it's happening everywhere, isn't it? I've watched it happen in Bucharest. Neighborhoods where my parents' friends used to live are now cocktail bars and co working spaces. The buildings are prettier, but the stories are gone.
Exactly. And the frescoes, I mentioned the tourists touching them. Every hand that reaches out to feel the paint destroys a little more of it. The moisture from skin, the oils. Frescoes are incredibly fragile. Some of the Rupestrian churches have lost entire panels to curious fingers. We are loving these places to death. I tell visitors, please look with your eyes, not your hands. But when you feel moved by something, the instinct is to reach out. I understand it. I just wish there were fewer hands.
That tension between sharing a place and protecting it, that's what this whole show is about. Keith started off the map to spotlight places the guidebooks skip. But there's always that paradox. The moment you put a hidden gem on the map, it's not hidden anymore. How do you navigate that, Lucia? Honestly,
I think the answer is in how you come. If you come to Matera for the photograph, for the image of yourself standing in front of ancient stone, you take something and leave nothing. But if you come to learn the bread stamp tradition, to sit in a Rupestrian church in silence to listen to a local tell you about their grandmother, then you are part of the story. You carry it forward. The Guna people Keith spoke with in episode 1, they said the same thing, yes? Come with respect. See us. That is all we ask. It is the same here. Matera does not need more visitors. It needs more witnesses.
witnesses. I love that word. Not tourists. Witnesses. People who carry the story forward.
Yes, my grandmother witnessed the evacuation. The young activists witnessed the abandonment and chose to fight. UNESCO witnessed the value. Now it is the visitors' turn. If they witness well, Matera survives, not just the stone, but the spirit. If they come only for the photo, then we become a museum. Beautiful, yes, but empty again, in a different way.
That lands hard, Lucia, and it reminds me, if you're listening right now and this kind of travel speaks to you, the kind where you actually show up and experience a place for real, not just skim the surface, that's exactly what Dallasite on Tour is about. Keith built this community for people who want to travel with intention. Check the show notes for more on that, because this is the way to do it. Lucia, before we go, if someone listening books a flight to Matera tomorrow, what's the one thing they should do that no guidebook will tell them?
Wake up before sunrise. Walk to the Belvedere di Murgia Timone, the viewpoint across the ravine. Stand there as the light comes. Do not take a photo. Not yet. Just breathe. Watch the stone change color, gray to gold to almost pink. Listen to the bells. Let the city introduce itself to you on its own terms. That is how Matera wants to be met. Not conquered, met.
That's beautiful. Lucia, thank you. Truly. You didn't just tell us about Matera, you made us feel it, and that's the whole point.
Thank you, Ginger. And thank you to everyone listening. Come see us, but come gently.
That's a wrap on this week's Off the Map, everyone. I hope you're feeling something right now. Maybe wanderlust, maybe gratitude, maybe just a craving for really good bread. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another voice from a place the world almost forgot. Angelen? We're all going to Gauman Francis on. The sentencing intend this and HT. Yochin and Indiamants at Sintings. I'm Ginger Pelirroja, she says like geek. See you next time.
Arrivederci, everyone. Dallasite on tour. Plug. Ginger references dote naturally in the closing of Chapter 3. Show notes should include link to Dallasite, ontour.org, and Bright Life membership, https://asbrightlifea.com.t.